Hello and welcome to another edition of Rock M Reacts. I'm Quentin riding solo here in Columbia, South Carolina, as Adine Rao is currently in Colorado. Missouri falling to South Carolina earlier tonight, 34-30, in a heartbreaker that looked like for much of the late third and early fourth quarter could be yet another epic Mizzou comeback. But unfortunately, the Gamecocks had something to say about it late. Rocket Sanders scoring the game winner with 15 seconds left after they're bouncing off of what felt like 17 tackles to barrel into the end zone and deal Mizzou its third defeat of the season, effectively ending any dim college football playoff hopes that the Tigers had. Again, it looked like the Cardiac Cats could pull off another stunner. They were down 21-6 at halftime. They did not look good on either side of the ball. But of course, just like Mizzou had since the start of last season, they found a new gear and they score 16 unanswered. They're down 27-22. It's 4th and 5 with under, I believe, 2 minutes to go in regulation. Brady Cook delivers a beautiful ball to Luther Burden III, makes a one-handed catch and evades the defender, gets into the end zone. Jamal Roberts converts the 2-point conversion. But then 2018 happens all over again. For those who cannot recall, Mizzou at South Carolina, Tucker McCann drills a 56-yard field goal to put the Tigers up 35-34. But then South Carolina marches right down the field, and Parker White drills the game-winning kick to beat Mizzou 37-35. Tonight wasn't as rain-soaked, wasn't nearly as rain-soaked as that 2018 contest was, but it followed a similar theme of the defense falling apart late after the offense had done their job. It was something that Johnny Walker Jr. said after the game. He feels like the defense let the offense down in a way, and can't say he's wrong. He himself had a few pretty nice plays tonight, but I think the one that he's going to remember and the one that a lot of other people are going to remember overall is him not being able to sack Lenore Sellers on a third down, what would have been a huge loss on the drive after Mizzou had taken the lead 22-21. But just like Lenore Sellers has so many times this season, he was able to escape. He was able to find a man for a first down. South Carolina goes on and scores. There were a lot of turning points, a lot of momentum swings, especially in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. It's now back-to-back weeks where Mizzou has been involved in a game where the first chunk of the contest is pretty clunky and or Mizzou falls down by a lot. And the second chunk of the contest, the home stretch, pardon my French, but shit gets crazy. It wasn't as crazy as last week against Oklahoma, where I believe for the first time in the last 20 seasons, there were 4 touchdowns scored in the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds. There wasn't that much chaos in that little time, but 4 touchdowns were scored, and I believe the final 10 minutes of the game, both teams combined for 31 points in the fourth quarter. But for the first time since November 5th, 2022, Mizzou comes out on the wrong side of a one-possession game. They had been riding an 8-game win streak, which was pretty insane. It still is pretty insane and will always be pretty insane. That is not supposed to happen. I mean, you look at a team like Nebraska over these past few seasons, an unfortunate part of their identity has been its complete inability to win close games. And for all the people that have said after tonight, in the wake of the close defeat, that Mizzou, quote unquote, Mizzou'd again, historically, sure, that's true. But over the past couple of seasons, since the start of 2023, that hasn't been the case. Mizzou has always found a way to win these close games. And it looked like the Tigers could again tonight, but they didn't. Offensively, Brady Cook, clearly not 100%, but definitely the closest to 100% we've seen him since he suffered a high ankle sprain against Auburn. His only quote-unquote big mistake of the night was an interception, but that was with 15 seconds left, and he was simply trying to make something happen deep in his own territory with the Straits being extremely dire. He was 21 of 30 otherwise. threw a touchdown pass, uncorked a couple of deep shots, which was encouraging to see if you're Mizzou, because the lid has not come off nearly as easily this season over the air as it did last season. Had a big 49-yard completion to Marquise Johnson with a defensive pass interference and a roughing the passer, and he had a 23-yard completion to Theo Weiss on the first drive of the game after he had scrambled for 9 yards on the previous play. That sort of zapped all of the concerns, or at the very least most of the concerns people had about his health entering today. Many were not sure whether he was going to play. He was a true game time decision. Obviously ends up suiting up and has a solid game. He had a few poor throws and poor reads here and there, but for the most part, as Eli Drinkwitz said in the postgame press conference, he gave Mizzou a chance to win. Behind him, or sometimes next to him, Nate Noel, huge night on the ground, 150 rushing yards, inside and outside zone were working fantastically. You got to wonder, though, there were some plays where I think at least Mizzou could have gone to a run that was working well, but instead they passed, and it wasn't as fruitful as I think it could have been had Mizzou chosen to run the ball. But nevertheless, the offensive line looked pretty good. Brady Cook had ample time to throw on most dropbacks, and Nate Noel had a lot of running lanes. So offensively, it was a positive game, and then you think about the clutch play on 4th and 5. Not only is that a great pass, that was a great read and a check by Brady Cook into what he said was Luther's favorite route to run, and Burden makes an incredible catch and gets extremely valuable yards after the catch. I'm not sure the play he made, I'm not sure many other receivers in college football can do what he did. But defensively, not great. A lot of issues on that side of the ball. Lenora Sellers was comfortable for most of the night. Mizzou had a lot of trouble tackling. A couple of busted coverages, including on the first touchdown of the game to Nick Harbor, where Drayden Norwood blitzes. Marvin Burks Jr. did not expect him to. He was supposed to pick him up, or maybe he wasn't. I'm not sure who was at fault there. But Nick Harbor runs free wide open for South Carolina's first touchdown of the game. Obviously, I already mentioned Johnny Walker failing to wrap up Lenora Sellers on what could have been a momentum swinging play in favor of Mizzou, but it ended up going the opposite direction. And the secondary in general really struggled covering guys man-to-man. Drinkwitz made note of it in the postgame presser, and the statistics also say it as well. Lenora Sellers, over 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, just the third South Carolina quarterback that was a freshman, redshirt or true freshman, to ever throw for at least 300 yards against an SEC opponent. He was, again, very comfortable. Mizzou did not create a lot of positive plays defensively. There were some here and there, but they were not able to generate the kind of pressure I think a lot of people, including myself, thought they could. So a lot to go back and think about. I thought it was pretty nuts for Mizzou to almost do it again. But in the end, they couldn't overcome the miscues that had kept them down in the first half. Also want to mention a struggle on third down. Mizzou was 1 of 9 on third down. That's not going to win you many ball games. And a lot of those missed third downs came in the red zone, and they had to settle for field goals. Blake Craig was decent on the night, 3 of 4. His only miss coming from 49 yards on a waffler. I have to go back and check the tape to see if it was a bad snap and or a bad hold. But usually when a field goal kick rotates sideways, that's never a good sign, which it did on the 49-yarder. So I'll have to go back and see what that was all about. But overall, a great fight for Mizzou, but unfortunately, the Tigers could not come up with a victory in a type of game that they had won so many times before, dating back to last season. And so just to close things out, again, I think it is going to be difficult for any team in college football to make a legitimate college football playoff berth case with 3 losses. But considering the manner in which Mizzou lost the first 2 times, where it was outscored 75-10, looking non-competitive for, I'd say, 6 out of those 8 quarters against Texas A&M and Alabama. I think we can officially close the door on those hopes and aspirations. But a very solid bowl game is still in the cards, whether that is in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, or Nevada for the Las Vegas Bowl. But a tough one tonight for the Tigers. Again, final score, South Carolina 34, Mizzou 30. The Tigers will travel to Starkville next week to take on Mississippi State, and then we'll go back home for the final game of the regular season against Arkansas. I'm Quentin. This has been another edition of Rock M Reacts. You all have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.